Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. This is Srini here, and today we are going to look into the continuation of a previous video that is on designing the Selenium automation framework. So in the last video, we have looked at the component which is a properties file, and in this particular video, we are going to look at TestNG component. That is, how do you prepare a TestNG test case, and how would you run your automation framework using a TestNG test case? So we'll just look at the initial design part and do the coding and run the test case as well. So this is what the topic is for today: designing automation framework. In that, we're going to look at the TestNG test case component. So these are the key takeaways which you can expect from this particular session. What is TestNG? You will hear from me the brief about what is a TestNG all about. How do we write a TestNG test case? What are the different annotations in a TestNG framework? And finally, we will see how do we reference a TestNG test case in an automation framework. If at all you want to run your automation suite, regression automation suite, or any automation suite for that matter, how would you run that using TestNG? So we are just going to look at a sample design part and the code demonstration. So let's get on to the practical part. So in the last session, we had written a piece of code for running a test case or running something from main method. So we are going to replicate or do the same scenario here, but instead of main, we will be basically doing it through a TestNG annotation. So for that, what you need to know about is TestNG. Okay, so TestNG is like a framework. Okay, it's like a testing framework, and this is like similar to JUnit. Okay, so if you are not familiar with JUnit or TestNG, just to give you all an idea, if at all you want to do some unit testing, then developers use this JUnit testing framework. They use it for their unit testing, and TestNG is a more advanced version of JUnit. It has richer annotations, and it has basically uh, resolved the drawbacks of JUnit. So JUnit is like a deprecated or a previous version to TestNG. So we will be referring to TestNG rather than JUnit for our test framework. Okay, so let's get on to the basics of TestNG. In TestNG, we have something called as annotations. So these annotations play a key role because they tell what exactly we want to do. So for example, let's say you want to run a test case where we want to log into a website. We want to log into a website and enter our login credentials and search for some item, just a sample use case, right? So to do that, what you need as a prerequisite, we need to identify what we need as a prerequisite before we do any test case execution. This is very important. We need to know what exactly is a prerequisite for a test case, right? So for that, we should be having libraries for, I'm talking about from automation perspective, what is required. We need to have libraries for executing a test case. That is, we need to have Selenium Java language binding. Okay. Either you have this or you have Selenium standalone server jar. Any of that should be fine, right? We want to execute this using Selenium. So this is our one of the prerequisite. What else you need? If you are executing from a Chrome browser, you need to have a Chrome driver, and you have to give a path to instantiate the driver variable, like how we have done in our launching a test case, right? If at all you want to just launch a website, launch a browser, then you get the application URL from the user, launch it, get the credentials, that is a username, password from the user, and then you log into the website. So the prerequisite for that was you need to have the language binding for the Selenium server, and you need to have a Chrome driver to start a test case or run a test case from a UI perspective. But this particular test case is not requiring any of such kind of action, right? It doesn't require any UI or anything as such. But if at all it needs any interaction with your UI, or if it needs to do anything with respect to Selenium, you need to have Selenium library as a part of your project. So if you look at our project here in reference libraries, these are the different libraries which I have imported as a part of my project. So I have support for, see, Apache POI. I have support for Apache POI. I have support for JDBC. I have Selenium Server standalone. I have even the Selenium Java binding as well. So this is what I was talking about. And even I have TestNG library. So this is the prerequisite for me to execute a TestNG test case. I need to have the TestNG jar file as a part of my project, or you need to have a library for TestNG. If you see here, this library, let me remove it and show how I have basically imported this. Let me remove it from the build path. It's removed. Now, if I try to write a TestNG test case, for that we have something called annotations. So @test is the annotation we have for a test case. Okay, this is for a test method. Actually, it's not even a test case, it's a test method. Don't get confused. This is an annotation for a test method. That's what we call in TestNG. This is how we indicate a test method in TestNG using a @test annotation. So just do a mouse over. It doesn't allow us to do anything, so let's do one thing. Let's create a method. So we can create some methods like this. Let me say that read properties file is my test case name. So for that, read property test. So always it's a good thing, recommended practice to mention a test keyword as a part of your method, because you are trying to run a test case, right? So whenever you're trying to run a test case, mention what you're trying to do and mention this keyword test as a part of it. Do we need to pass any input parameter? That's the second question which we need to ask ourselves. Do we need to pass any parameter or not? If not, then you don't have to worry about this part. Now, if you see here, when I do a mouse over, it is giving me these all different quick fixes or suggestions, right? So I will go for this particular suggestion that I want to add a TestNG library. See, we also have other options like JUnit as I had discussed, but this is a more richer library. So I'll go for TestNG library. So it has automatically added it to your part of your project. Now let's look at the second part. Still the error is not gone. It's not able to understand. It's asking, do you want to import org.junit test or org.testng.annotation? So we'll go for the first one because this is the one for testng. So this is how you write a test method in testng. Now you just have to simply copy the same statement, whatever you had written earlier as a part of main method. And you don't need main method now. So I'm just going to comment out this piece of code. So testng basically would be like your framework will be looking for this @test keyword. Like how for any particular Java file, a program, we say that it starts the execution by looking at the main method, right? That's how the compiler starts its execution. I mean, at the runtime, it starts the execution by looking for the main method. It should be in a proper syntactical fashion, and then it will start executing all the statements within the code block. Similar to this way, we have testng, which starts by looking at the test or the other annotations. So like at the test, there are many other annotations as well. But since this is a very basic lecture, which I am explaining you all how to include a testng test case in a automation framework, I'm just going to limit my examples here. So let me run this test case, the same test case what we had ran last time using main method. So you just have to say right click, and instead of running as a Java configuration, you will now run as a testng. It's called testng test. So let's run it. So we look at the console. So if you see here, the failures are 0, and it has completed the one test case, and it has read the property as well. The same what we had done last time using main method, we have achieved now through testng. Now I'll just give you all other examples quickly. So like @test, we have other annotations like before test. Okay, we have before method. So then we have after test, and then we have after method. Likewise, there are many other annotations present like before class, after class. So this is just like the other annotations which I wanted to list down here. But if you want to understand in detail, you can look at my lectures in my Selenium playlist. There I've explained in detail all about testng. So this is for a test case. That is before executing a test case. If we want to achieve or do some prerequisites, as I had called out earlier, we can just give like this kind of annotation. So it's going to execute these prerequisites So there will be a method like this, same like this, we have done. So let's call it as before test, right? So it's going to execute this particular code block before it starts executing any test case. So this test keyword means a test case, okay? And this @test only means a test method. So don't get confused. So when I say before method means it's going to execute some prerequisite. So let's just define it quickly. So I'm just going to say before method, and likewise let's just give it for all the other annotations as well. We do have other annotations as well, but we are just going to look at basic examples here. In detail, if you want to understand and practice TestNG, go through my playlist on videos on TestNG. There are other annotations like data provider, so that also is very useful. Yeah, so we have before class and we have after class. Of course, you have to give a distinct name for everything. So I'm just going to say this is after method, right? This is after test, because this is after test annotation. And try to give this kind of a naming convention. First letter should be small, second letter of the word should be capital. That's always a good way of writing methods when you're working in a team for a framework. It's always a good way to go about. Yeah, so before class, and here C should be capital, and this is after class. Okay, so this is how we have written all the different methods, but of course these annotations are not yet imported by us, right? So what I'm going to do, just for the sake of understanding, I'm going to write some statements here, which will give you all an indication of what exactly is happening when you are executing a TestNG test case, which has such annotations present, right? How it goes about. So we have to first import the annotations before test we have imported. Okay, yeah, there is a syntactical error. We can either put a comment like this, okay, and we can use this out here, just mentioning which particular method we are in. So I am going to say in before test. So it will be giving us an indication of how the flow of execution is happening whenever you are having TestNG, how the flow is happening. So let's have a sysout statement in every method. And we will look at practical examples later in our framework using TestNG, where how these methods gets used also, it will be more clear. So here I'm going to say in before method, and here I'm going to say in after test. This is after method. So method is nothing but test method, or we can just say method here. And this is before class. This is after class. Right, so let's just import all the other annotations and let's execute this test case. That's what we'll look for today. So import before method, after test. So as and when we develop this framework across multiple lectures, you would see this will become more useful, and with respect to actual code, how these annotations play a role, you would be more clear about. So remember to use the TestNG annotation import rather than the JUnit. Otherwise, sometimes it will not work. And yeah, so just be careful about that. So you can always verify at the top what has been imported. Everything is from TestNG. Okay, so that's it. So we don't have any errors now. Let's go ahead and execute this test case, and it will give us a feel about what is the structure at which this is going to execute. So a simple example or a way to tell how the execution is going to happen, if you want to understand, you just have to create one XML file that is called a testng.xml. So just come down here, okay, and there is an option here to convert to testng. So this is going to create a testng.xml file. See, this is the testng.xml file will be created, and look at the hierarchy here. This is what is very important for you all to understand in a framework, as well as from an interview perspective. Such kind of questions could be asked. It's very confusing sometimes for initial beginners, but just try to pay attention here. First comes the suit level. Okay. First comes the suit, means an automation regression suit. Then comes the collection of test cases. So there could be like, so this is like one test particular tag, right? I can just copy this like this. I can copy this and I can create my another one, right? Let me call this as test2, right? And it's fine. I can give the same path again. It's up to me, but I will of course be referencing some other class and all that. And within a class, right? See, within a class, you are going to have methods. So for now, I'm just going to execute it. So let it create a testng.xml file like this here. Go to its source. Don't go to design. So this is how it is. It has created a default implementation. Within a class, I can have methods like this, right? And I can then give a name, which particular method I need to include or exclude, etc. We can mention. So I can say include name equal to, and just close like this. So which particular method do we need to include? So these are the different methods. So as of now, I have only one method, right? Read property test. So I can mention that particular method name here. Okay. So this is the hierarchy. Try to understand the hierarchy here. So this is the way how we denote comments in .xml file. So I'm just going to mention the multi-line comments here so that you understand the hierarchy. First comes the suit. Okay. This is from top to bottom. I'm just trying to go here. Then comes the suit level. Then comes the class level. Then comes the methods, as you can see from this hierarchy. So now when you're looking at this particular file, what all different ones do you see? And we have methods, right? These are nothing but the test methods. These are nothing but the test methods. So suit, test, class, then comes your method. So this is the hierarchy which is going to be happening. So do you have something here called before suit? No, right? You have before class and after class. So let's create a couple of more here, which is going to be at before suit, after suit. Okay. And we have to create new methods for that, before suit and after suit. That's it. Okay. And import these annotations. So this is from TestNG, and this also is going to be from TestNG because JUnit does not have support for these annotations, suit level. That's why TestNG is more better and efficient than compared to JUnit. Now you look at this. So firstly, your method of before suit is going to execute first because from a hierarchy perspective, that comes first, right? So this is going to be executed first. Then comes your after suit because once your before suit is done, it's going to execute your after suit. Then comes your test level, right? So before test is going to execute at the third level. Then comes your after test, which is going to be executed fourth. Once your tests are within, once you start going inside a test case, then comes your class level. If you see here, then comes your class level, then comes the methods. So within a class, after your test has been, okay, this is going to come later. Sorry for that. Because after your test has been exited, you're going to execute this part. So after the test hierarchy, what comes? It's a class, right? And even the before after suit is going to come later. So this one is going to come later. So we are going from top to bottom. So first is before suit. After suit is going to be at the last. Okay. Because this is the end. We are going to come after completing everything. We are going to look at this after suit. So this is first. This is last for now. Once we go inside a suit, what starts? We are having test. Okay. So we are going to have before test as a second statement here. Okay, there is before test here. Here it is. So this is going to be second statement. Understand this part now. Once you come inside a test, then comes a class, right? You have not yet exited the test here. Because if you look at the hierarchy, you are not going to exit a test until you execute the class and methods. So be very careful here whenever you are trying to give any answer to the interviewer as well. So this before test is going to come second. Then comes your, within a test you're having class. So now you're going to go for before class, which is going to be the third in the hierarchy. Okay. And now you're going to go inside a class which is having a method. So you are going to have a method, but for that first you have to do before method. Then we have done the prerequisite. Now we are going to execute the @test annotation. So maybe you can mention a statement like this here, that in test method. So this is going to be executed fifth when we are executing the entire flow. Once this test method is executed, you are going to come to after method, because your method execution is done, right? So you are going to come at after method here. This is going to be executed sixth in the hierarchy. And after your method is executed, you have to come outside your, see, your method is executed and you have to come outside your class. So you're going to have after class after the method's execution is over. So after class is going to be your seventh statement. Okay. So it's going to be your seventh statement. And after your class is done, you are going to come out of this particular class and you're going to come to after test and then after suit. So which are going to be the eighth and ninth statements, which is going to be ninth. Okay. And eighth one is going to be your after test. So now you can just compare with what we have done here, right? After test, then after suit, and that's it. We have completed our execution. So now let's run this particular program and let's try to run it now from testng.xml. This is the another way of executing a test case. You can have like this multiple test cases in methods, and you can include like multiple include statements like this here, and it's going to execute whatever you have mentioned in include. Let's say you don't have any methods tag at all here, then whichever methods are mentioned in class and which are actually enabled in the sense which are going to be executed. So there is some flag called enabled flag. So if you don't mention any flag, by default it is assumed to be enabled. So example, this is the flag I was talking about. Enabled equal to true. If you don't mention it also, it's fine. Just when you don't want to execute it, we mention like this, enabled equal to false. So then this particular method will not get executed. Just like a extra information. And that is it. So we are all set to execute this test case. So let's save it. And this is just for the notes. Let's run it as a TestNG suite. Let's look at the execution flow. Here it is. So you can see the way we have mentioned in our notes, the same way it has executed. First, it's going to execute before suit. Then it will come to your before test, because suit is not yet exited, right? Let me show the output here. Yeah. So first is going to be your before suit. Then comes your test. Then comes your before class. And then comes your before method. Then you will be executing your method. So that's why we are saying in test method. Do whatever you want to do in that method. We have come out of that method. Now we are in after method. And now comes the reverse order. Then you're in after class, you're in after test, then you're in after suit. So this should clarify your understanding about how the execution should happen when you're working with TestNG framework model. So I hope this session was useful to you all, and we'll more make this framework more richer in terms of features and cover all the components. So stay tuned for my next lecture. And if you're new to my channel, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and do stay tuned for my videos. Thank you so much.